lots of others have already said, but I'd like to start and say it's really an honour for me to be here to say a few words on the 66th anniversary of 1959 Tibetan Uprising. And more specifically, it's an honour for me to witness this turnout, this commitment from you to come here to call for Tibetan freedom. This day marks not only the brutal crackdown in Tibet, but also the enduring spirit of Tibetan endurance. My name is Mandie McKeown, and I'm the Executive Director of International Tibet Network. Our network spans 5 continents. We have 140 plus Tibet group organisations who are members of the network. And together, we display a shield of support for Tibet across the world. Being here today is so important, especially at this really critical time for Tibet. For over 7 decades, the Tibetan people have faced a relentless oppression, systematic erosion of their culture, the suppression of religious freedom, and the denial of fundamental human rights. Today, 7 decades later, Tibet remains under China's occupation. And I'm sure, as so many speakers have already said, you're aware that there's a brutality taking place in Tibet, and not least the strategic colonial boarding school programme that separates at least 1 million Tibetan children from their parents and from their culture, children as young as 4 years old. It's a barbaric system, and a system that is designed to erase the Tibetan culture and identity within the next generation. So we're gathered here today, as thousands of others have in cities around the world, because Tibet needs us. It needs us now. It needs us to call on our governments to join together and stand for Tibet. In a few days, the UK's Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, will be meeting with other G7 leaders. And we've been calling on him to take a real stand for Tibet, calling on them, the G7, to understand the urgency of this situation and to take strong multilateral action and call out China's failed Tibet policies. Thousands of people have signed the petition to the G7 leaders, calling on them to take this robust action. And signing petitions does work. Just last week, after we built immense pressure, we saw the UN Human Rights Commissioner, Volker Turk, finally raise serious concern about China's colonial boarding schools in Tibet. So if you haven't added your names to this petition, I call on you now to do that. Rashi is holding up a little sign. You can scan the QR code and add your name to the petition. It's going to be delivered very shortly. So despite China's ongoing repression and the brutal crackdowns, Tibetans in Tibet continue to display extraordinary determination, courage and resilience. And we're here to honour the brave men and women who rose up in Lhasa in 1959 and all those who sacrificed their lives for the Tibetan cause. We thank His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama for his unwavering leadership and inspiration. And we remember all of those who've lost their lives, those who remain in prison, and those who continue to resist against the Chinese occupation of Tibet. The Tibetan struggle is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, and we must use our freedom to ensure that the courageous Tibetan resistance is not in vain. Tibetans will not be silenced, and we cannot be defeated. We must continue to resist until justice and freedom prevail in Tibet. Later this year, Prime Minister Keir Starmer is expected to go to China, and we must use this opportunity to tell him to use his opportunity to hold China accountable. China must be held accountable for their failed policies in Tibet, and he has an opportunity to not be complacent. So today's wave of solidarity can't stop here, and we must use this moment to further call on the UK government to tackle the situation in Tibet and to call on China to do something about it. So let's commit to raise our voices to another level. Let's send a massive roar of support from here across the Tibetan plateau all the way to the Chinese leaders in Beijing. Bog Yellow.